What's good? It's a Boydude Reviews, and today we're gonna review the 17th Disney animated feature film in the Disney canon, 101 Dalmatian, a 1961 American animated film produced by Walt Disney and based on the 1956 novel The 101 Dalmatian by Dodie Smith. The film basically tells the story of a litter of Dalmatian puppies who are kidnapped by a villainous Cruella de Vil, who wants to use their fur to make into coats. Their parents, Pongo and Perdita, set out to save their children from Cruella, all while rescuing 84 additional puppies that were brought in pet shops, bringing a total of 101 Dalmatians, and originally released to theaters on January 25th, 1961 by United Distribution. Tongue twister right there. The film was a box office success, pulling the studio out of financial slump caused by Sleeping Beauty. And aside from the Xbox office revenue, its commercial success was due to the employment of inexpensive animation techniques, such as using the Xerox process, which is a process of inking and painting traditional cells. And basically, the Xerox, if you know Disney animation before this time, they would literally they would animate it, and then they would hand like ink it, like they would ink, paint it. And that inking and painting process took forever and it was expensive. So Disney were like, um, why not use the original animation like line art and use that as the cells for the line art. That way you don't have to ink it, and it creates this very distinct look, a very stylized look, and that's just my positive about this film. I love the new art direction. It looks actually very funky. It has this groovy look to it, and the Xerox process really did give Disney this whole new look. It was very different, it was very funky, it was very groovy, and I loved it. The character designs are very exaggerated and very extreme in places. I love the style of the dogs and the humans, they all look so great. The characters are all just wonderful and memorable. I have watched this film to death. I've got it on VHS. I watched it billions of times when I was a child, and I've loved this film. I love the opening sequence, just the funky, groovy and beat, and all the spots just moving about. I love that sequence. I think it was great. I also just kind of liked seeing the the two couple. Who are they? Roger and is it Roger? It's Roger and Anita, the two human. I freaking love those two. They make such a great couple, and they're one of those couples who are just, they probably like piss each other off all the time, but they just love each other deep down. I love their designs. I love their voice actors. Rod Taylor does, not Rod Taylor, sorry. Ben Wright does Roger, and Lisa Davis as Anita. And who's the nanny? Marif Wentworth. She's the maid. She's just, I love her design. I love her just personality. Very fussy, very maid-like. It's just so great. And literally Pongo and Perdita, I love those two. They're just great. Pongo is this thirsty dog who just wants, to find a mate, and he just notices. I like how Pongo calls his owner his pet, and it's just like he's just pet, my pet, my pet, my pet. It's really funny. It's great, and obviously he's just literally he's like eyeing out all the dogs in the beginning of the film, seeing which one's a match. And I just kind of like the dialogue in his head. Like, he's just kind of like looking at this one, and he's like, no, and this one, no. And then he just sees Perdita and Anita, and he's just like, yep, this is going to be my future wife. And he's just like, I give him props. He's committed, and he's determined. He knows what he wants, and it's great. But definitely the main star of the film is definitely Cruella de Vil, voiced by Betty Lou Gerson. She is this cruel, eccentric heiress who basically wants Pongo Perdita's puppies to be turned into fur coats, and she's just evil. And everyone everyone in this film says idiots a lot, and this woman says idiots a lot, especially to her two, the Winklings. Is it Boris and Jasper? I think. I don't know who they're called. Boris and Jasper. Horace and Jasper. That's it. Voiced by Frederick Warlock and J. Pat O'Malley. And those two are just absolutely great. They are absolutely great. I love their designs. I love the two personalities. They're just goofballs, knuckleheads, and they're just so funny. They have one of the funniest scenes, especially with Cruella as well. Like, that's where all the comedy comes from. And it's just so well paced, you know. It doesn't, you know, linger on for too long, but it doesn't speed it up that you don't understand what's happening, and it's just so great, and it's so fun to watch. I love the score as well. It's very of its time, you know, it's very 60s, and it does work. I think that's why this film was very, you know, did so well, because it was a very, very different film compared to a lot of the other Disney films at the time. It was very different, and it saved Disney. This film is the movie that saved Disney. Like, oh my gosh, this film saved Disney. It made a lot of money. It really, really pulled Disney out. It was the most popular film in France of the year as well. And this film was so successful that they did a live action remake and a television series and a sequel, and it's getting a live action spin-off coming soon. It's like, it's done crazy well. Like, people have loved it, and it's just so unique, and it's just such an original story, and it's very simple. Two dogs are looking for their kids who've been kidnapped by an evil woman, but the way it's executed is just so funny, heartwarming, and just great. Their children, like from Patch to Lucky to Rolly, they're just all funny and memorable, and they're just so cute and amazing, and I love all them. Negatives, I have no negatives of this film. There is nothing I hate about this film, because as I said, I grew up with this movie and I have watched it endlessly, and I have never ever gotten bored of this film. Like, this film is just one of those films where you just watch over and over again and it never gets boring. It's just so great and just very different. It's a very different film. I like the use of Xerox. The backgrounds also kind of use that Xerox process where it's just very like it's very sketchy outliney, but it works well with the background. It definitely works well. However, Walt Disney disliked the artistic look of the film, as he felt that it was losing the fantasy element of his animated feature films. However, that's the thing. His films in the past were fantasy. This is the first Disney film to be set in modern times. I mean, think about it. Snow White, Cinderella, Pinocchio, Dumbo. Like, okay, Lady and the Tramp was set in modern time, but this film was set in like, Lady and the Tramp was American. This is a London set film, and it kind of correlates to like the gloomy look of London, you know, like some of the backgrounds do have this kind of gloomy look, and yeah, London is known to be looking really gloomy, and I do feel like it worked. As I said in like the visual look, basically the directors of the film took inspiration from British cartoonist Ronald Searle, and yeah, they really did like his style, and he did advise the director to use a Mont's blank pen and indie ink for his artwork, and it does have that look, and it is very British looking, I have to admit, and it is a British film, and I just love it, to be honest with you. I love this film to death. I cannot think of anything I hate about this film, because if I do, I think I hate my childhood, because honestly, even the scratchy outlines that may look a little bit unpolished at times, you know, when you look at it, I don't care. I think it looks amazing. And There's just nothing bad about this film. Every single little scenes, and it's just so great and just fun to watch. And I'm sorry, but I'm definitely gonna give this film a definite 10 out of 10. I'm gonna give it an A plus. This film is my childhood, and if I'm to watch a movie again, it's gonna be this one. This film is fabulous. It's a fabulous movie, and it is possibly the only movie of the Xerox era that I liked. Any movie that uses Xerox process, I couldn't stand, or I have mixed aspects of it, and we'll get to those films later on. But this was probably the best looking Xerox film because they stylized the characters in a way that matched the background, that matched the tone of the film, the soundtrack, and just the environment. And this is when the Walt Disney animation company were really getting back up today. But this was also an era when Walt Disney himself wasn't so invested in animation. He was more into theme parks, merchandising, and live action movies. This also came out during the same time Mary Poppins came out. I think it was a year after Mary Poppins. So he was so more focused into that aspect. And yeah, if you look at these films, they do lose that fantasy element that his original films did have. But honestly, I feel like it was a step in a new and fresh direction. I do like this movie, and I think if it had that fantasy element, it would have not worked. But the fact that the dogs talk in it, doesn't that show fantasy? So I don't know what Walt Disney was talking about. But yeah, please like and share this video and comment down below and tell me what is your favorite Disney film. Did you like this film? Because I sure did. But thank you for watching, and as always, like and subscribe. Boydude signing out.